Black CEO accused of stealing his own car. Minutes later, he fired the police chief. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, back to our main character, Marcus Hale. The afternoon sun was dipping low over downtown Detroit when the shout sliced the quiet parking lot like a warning shot fired straight into the air. Hands where we can see them. Step away from the vehicle. The command snapped across the concrete with a force that made 2 employees freeze near the glass doors of Hale Dynamics headquarters. Tires still ticking warm. Engine newly shut off. The sleek midnight black Hale Dynamic X9 sat behind Marcus like an animal he'd just tamed. But the 2 officers charging toward him didn't see a driver. They saw a suspect. Their boots hit the pavement in angry, rehearsed rhythm, badges glinting under the harsh parking lot lights, hands already hovering near their holsters. One of them, Sergeant Rourke, tall, tight jaw, chest puffed like a man who loved the weight of authority, jabbed a finger toward the car. We got a call about a stolen vehicle matching that exact plate. Step back now. The word stolen landed hard, louder than it needed to be, loud enough for everyone watching to hear exactly what he meant. Marcus didn't move. Hoodie on, sleeves pushed up, key fob still in his palm. His breathing stayed steady, controlled, practiced, like someone who'd lived this moment too many times. Sir, the second officer barked, this is your last warning. The silence around them tightened. A young intern lingering near the entrance whispered to her coworker, isn't that the prototype? The founder was testing it today, but the officers weren't listening. They were already judging, already concluding, already writing a story they believed was true the second they saw him. Rourke circled the car, eyes trailing the polished body like he was inspecting a crime scene. No way a guy dressed like that owns a $240,000 vehicle, he said, not even bothering to lower his voice. His partner drew closer, hand brushing the cuffs at his belt. Turn around. Hands up. Metal clicked. The air shifted. Marcus felt the shadow of a memory he hated, 17 years old, pushed against a police cruiser outside a mall because an officer insisted the bike he was walking beside looked too expensive for a kid like him. The fear then had been sharp, but the tiredness now was heavier, deeper. He took one step to the side, not out of fear, out of refusal to let someone lay hands on him without reason. Rourke mistook the movement as resistance. That's it, he snapped, grabbing Marcus's arm and twisting it behind his back. The sting shot up Marcus's shoulder, but he stayed still, grounded, spine straight. Calm wasn't submission. Calm was strategy. The young intern, Eliza Tran, took a hesitant step forward. Her voice trembled, but she spoke anyway. Wait, his badge scanned the biometric lock this morning. He's listed in the system. Rourke didn't spare her a glance. Ma'am, step back. This is police business. But step back. The word struck her like a slap. Marcus exhaled through his nose, slow and deliberate, and spoke with a quiet that cut louder than shouting. Clara, he said, activating the voice command on the smartwatch still exposed beneath his cuffed wrist. A crisp voice answered instantly. Yes, sir. Rourke blinked, thrown. Police didn't like surprises. Protocol Sigma, Marcus said. No rush. No fear. Just precision. Somewhere deep in the car's onboard core, systems awakened like a giant opening its eyes. The X9 hummed. Lights shifted. A soft chime echoed through the lot as onboard AI synced to the connected security grid of Hale Dynamics headquarters. The officers paused. A moment too late. The car spoke first, a clean digital tone filling the space. Owner identity confirmed. Marcus J. Hale. Founder access level. Primary authorization. Every head turned. The officers stiffened. The crowd near the doors drew in a collective breath. Marcus lifted his chin, eyes locked on Rourke. You're arresting the man who built the vehicle you think I stole. The words didn't shout. They didn't need to. They hit harder than any raised voice ever could. For a moment the parking lot went silent, as if the entire air had been vacuumed out of the space. The confirmation from the car's onboard system was still echoing in the officer's ears, but Sergeant Rourke's grip did not loosen. His fingers dug harder into Marcus Hale's arm, irritation burning through his facade of authority. That does not prove anything, he snapped, his voice cracking under pressure he could no longer hide. Anyone could have hacked that system. The accusation fell flat. The employees near the glass doors blinked, stunned. The intern, Eliza Tran, pressed a hand to her mouth. She had seen enough technical demonstrations at Hale Dynamics to know that the biometric lock could not be faked by anyone standing in a parking lot. Still, the officers pushed on, unwilling to let go of the narrative they had built. Officer Mills stepped closer, his voice sharpening. "Sir, you are still being detained until we verify your identity through our channels. Put your hands behind your back." Marcus did not resist. He stood still, grounded like a pillar driven into concrete. The metal of the handcuffs pressed colder against his skin with every second. Calm radiated from him like heat from asphalt, and that made the officers more uneasy than anger ever could. "Clara," Marcus said again into the smartwatch, his tone low enough that it almost sounded like a warning. "Initiate verification review. Bring in all internal logs for the last 48 hours. Already gathering them, sir," Clara replied with crisp precision. "Would you like me to notify the legal division?" "Not yet," Marcus answered. The officers exchanged looks. Threats they understood. This was not a threat. It was something worse, preparation. At that moment, the deep hum of the facility's security system activated. The building lights shifted subtly. Cameras repositioned with mechanical focus, tracking the unfolding scene. The officers stiffened as a soft digital voice emanated from the building's speakers. "Security protocol review in progress. Please remain where you are." Eliza took a shaky step forward. "Sergeant, you should listen. This is serious. He is the founder. He built that car. He owns this building." Rourke's temper snapped. "I said stay back." The shout reverberated too loudly, ricocheting off the metal rails and concrete pillars. Officer Mills doubled down, fueled by stubborn pride. "We have procedures. We have authority here." Marcus slowly lifted his head, eyes steady, voice steady. "Authority is not the same as correctness," he said. The sentence was simple, but it cut through the parking lot like a cold blade. Rourke tightened his grip, jaw flaring. He leaned toward Marcus's ear. "You think you can intimidate us with your fancy tech company? You are not special." But even as he said it, his voice trembled. The X9's dashboard screen lit up again, brighter this time, and displayed Marcus Hale's face with full founder-level clearance credentials. It projected the verification onto the windshield in bold white letters. A couple of employees gasped. One whispered, "This is going to go very badly for them." At that moment, the doors of the facility opened sharply. The head of building security, Raymond Cole, stepped out. His badge glinted under the setting sun. His stride was fast, focused, and filled with urgency. "Officers," he called out, his voice firm. "You need to release him. Now." Rourke scoffed. "We will release him when we verify him." Raymond shook his head with a grim expression. "You do not understand. You are detaining the wrong man." His eyes locked onto Marcus with an expression bordering on apology. "This is Marcus Hale. He is not only the founder, but the sole security-cleared operator of that vehicle model." The shift in the officer's posture was almost invisible, but the fear was instant. Their authority had just cracked. Marcus exhaled once, calm but edged with steel. "We are not finished," he said quietly. And every person watching knew he did not mean the conversation. He meant the consequences. The moment Raymond Cole's words hit the air, the tension in the parking lot twisted into something sharper, something no one could walk away from. Officer Mills' hand hovered near his cuffs, uncertain now, but Sergeant Rourke doubled down, gripping Marcus Hale's arm as if letting go would cost him more than his pride. His voice rose, desperate, brittle beneath the surface. "I do not care who you say he is. Until we verify through our system, he is being detained." It was the last attempt to hold on to control, and everyone watching could hear it breaking apart. Marcus did not pull away. Instead, he turned his head slightly, eyes steady, voice cold enough to silence the space around him. "Clara," he said calmly into the smartwatch, "activate internal playback. Project the last 24 hours of vehicle authorization logs." "Yes, sir," Clara replied. A soft chime echoed from the X9 as the windshield lit up once again, this time displaying a timeline of precise biometric scans, including the exact moment. Marcus unlocked the car that morning. Each entry was time-stamped, location verified, and matched to his unique signature. The evidence was undeniable, glowing across the glass like a courtroom verdict delivered in neon. A few employees covered their mouths. Eliza whispered, "That is founder-level tracking. They cannot argue with that." But they still did. "This does not prove he did not steal it earlier," Mills muttered weakly, though he sounded like he barely believed himself. Raymond Cole stepped closer, lowering his voice but not softening it. "Officers, this is a corporate facility with federally compliant security integration. If you were attempting theft, the system would have locked down instantly. You are making a serious error." Rourke's face stiffened. His grip tightened again, fingers digging into Marcus's arm. "I said he stays detained." Marcus finally lifted his eyes to meet his. Calm. Controlled. Inevitable. "You really should let go of me now." Those words did not need to be loud. They carried weight because every person present understood what was coming. Clara's voice returned, sharper this time, cutting through the parking lot with precision. "Sir, the system has flagged irregular officer conduct and elevated the incident to city oversight. Would you like me to forward the live recording to the mayor's office as well as the Public Safety Committee?" Rourke flinched. Mills swallowed hard. Raymond looked from them to Marcus with an expression that almost resembled pity. "You need to release him," he repeated. "Now." For the first time, doubt cracked through Rourke's posture. His hand hesitated, trembled even, but his pride refused to collapse. "We still need confirmation," he insisted. Marcus slowly shifted, turning just enough for the cuffed metal to catch the reflection of the setting sun. "Clara," he said, "patch and Director Owens." A second later, the smartwatch chimed, and a woman's authoritative voice filled the air. "Marcus, I am reviewing the footage now. The officers are in violation of 4 departmental protocols, possibly 5. Do you require immediate intervention?" Rourke's face drained of color. Mills took a step back. Marcus remained still, his expression unreadable. "Continue monitoring," he said. "Stand by." Eliza stared at him with wide eyes. She had never seen someone speak with so much calm while holding so much power. Raymond let out a breath as if he had been waiting for someone else to say what the entire building already knew. "Sergeant, if you do not release him, you will be escalating a situation you cannot control." Rourke finally spoke, but his voice held no confidence now. "We did not know who he was." Marcus turned his head with deliberate slowness, meeting Rourke's eyes with the weight of a man who had heard that excuse too many times in his life. "That is the problem," he said softly, "not the justification." The words hung in the air like a final verdict. Everyone knew the officers had crossed a line that could not be blurred, but they had no idea just how far the consequences were about to ripple. For a long second, none of the officers moved, as if the weight of Marcus Hale's words had pressed the entire parking lot into stillness. The late afternoon sun threw long shadows across the concrete, stretching over the officers' rigid stances, over Eliza's fearful expression, over Raymond's clenched jaw. The situation was no longer a misunderstanding. It had become a reckoning. Marcus remained cuffed, but his presence was the only steady thing in the lot, calm as stone, while the 2 men holding power just moments ago were scrambling to understand how it had slipped through their fingers. Sergeant Rourke took one uneasy step back, the first sign of retreat, but he still held on to the last thread of authority he thought he had. "You have to understand," he said, his voice thinner now. "We were responding to a report. We had to act." Marcus slowly turned his head, eyes fixed on him, voice level and unwavering. "Acting is not the issue. How you chose to act is." The words made Rourke flinch harder than any physical blow could have. Officer Mills opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, Clara's voice returned through the smartwatch. "Sir, additional data has been compiled. Officer Rourke and Officer Mills have prior flagged conduct reports involving biased stops in the last 12 months. Would you like them displayed?" The color drained from both officers' faces. Eliza inhaled sharply. Raymond stared at them with disbelief, as if realizing this moment was bigger than he expected. Marcus kept his voice measured. "Display them." The X-9's windshield illuminated again, projecting lines of documented incidents. 12 entries. 8 involving men. 4 involving teenagers. All involving assumptions that aligned disturbingly with what was unfolding now. A murmur spread through the employees watching from the entrance. One whispered, "I knew something felt wrong." Rourke's chest rose sharply, anger flaring like a last attempt to salvage dignity. This is a violation of procedure. You cannot just pull internal data like that. Raymond crossed his arms slowly. He can. This is his facility, his system, his company, and his vehicle. Every camera on this property reports directly to him. Mills swallowed and glanced at Marcus, realizing too late the scale of the mistake they had made. Look, we did not know who you were, he said quietly, almost pleading. Marcus's jaw tightened, but his voice remained soft, steady, deadly precise. If I were someone else, how far would this have gone? No one answered. The question hung heavy in the air, echoing in the tension. Clara's voice returned again, calm but clinical. Sir, the City Oversight Office has requested a live feed. They are asking for your statement regarding the officer's conduct. Rourke stepped forward quickly. There is no need for that. We can resolve this here. Marcus did not look at him. Clara, hold the request, he said, then let the silence settle over the lot again. He remembered flashes from years earlier. Officers yelling at him to step away from a rented vehicle he had fully paid for. A security guard accusing him of forging a building badge because he did not look like a corporate executive. A hotel clerk calling him suspicious because he checked in without luggage after a red-eye flight. Every memory sat in his eyes now. They were not loud memories, but they were heavy. Rourke finally exhaled in defeat, his posture cracking. You have to understand, we were just doing our jobs. Marcus looked at him with quiet disbelief. Your job is not to assume guilt, he said. Your job is to verify truth. For the first time since the confrontation began, Rourke removed his hand from Marcus's arm. His fingers trembled. Mills followed, stepping back. But the cuffs were still on Marcus's wrists, metal still biting against his skin. That final act of disrespect lingered. Raymond took a step forward. Remove the cuffs, he said firmly. Rourke hesitated. Mills hesitated. Marcus did not. He turned slightly toward Clara's audio channel. Clara, confirm the police chief's availability. The officers froze. The employees froze. Even the hum of the building seemed to pause. A moment later, Clara answered, The police chief is on the line and waiting for you, sir. And that was when everyone understood that the consequences were no longer coming. They were already here. The sound of Clara's voice confirming the police chief's presence hit the officers harder than any command Marcus Hale could have given. The color drained from Sergeant Rourke's face as if the sun itself had pulled the heat out of him. Officer Mills looked like he wanted to disappear into the concrete. Even Raymond Cole, who had been steady throughout the confrontation, straightened his posture as if bracing for the storm everyone knew was about to shift direction. Marcus stood perfectly still, cuffs still biting into his wrists, his breathing controlled and even. The chaos did not move him. It never had. It never would. Put him through, Marcus said. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Clara replied, connecting now. A slight chime sounded from the smartwatch, followed by the stern, unmistakable voice of Police Chief Warren Holbrook. Mr. Hale, I am on the line. What exactly is happening at your facility? His tone tried to carry authority, but there was an undercurrent of worry beneath it, a subtle tremor detectable only to those who understood what real power sounded like. Marcus's gaze never left Rourke and Mills. Your officers have unlawfully detained me on my own property, ignored building security warnings, dismissed biometric verification, and physically restrained me without evidence or cause. A beat of silence followed. The kind of silence that meant someone on the other end was rapidly calculating the cost of what they had just heard. Rourke swallowed hard. Mills shifted his stance, trying to look smaller. Chief Holbrook finally spoke. Officers, is this accurate? Rourke opened his mouth, but Marcus spoke first, cutting off the chance to twist the truth. Clara, replay the last 3 minutes of audio. Without hesitation, the smartwatch broadcasted Rourke's voice across the parking lot. The aggressive commands. The dismissal of evidence. The refusal to release Marcus even after verification. The implication that Marcus was trying to use privilege to escape consequences. Every reckless word was replayed with perfect clarity, leaving no room for reinterpretation. When it ended, Chief Holbrook's voice came through again, harder now. Officers, remove those cuffs immediately. Mills fumbled for the key. Rourke hesitated, still clinging to a shred of authority. He no longer held. Marcus watched him with a calm that forced the sergeant to look away first. Finally, The cuffs clicked open. The metal dropped into Mill's hand with a hollow jingle that echoed the collapse of their control. Marcus rubbed his wrists once, very slightly, then lowered his hands. The lack of anger in his eyes was more terrifying than fury would have been. "Mr. Hale," the chief said, "I assure you this incident will be reviewed. This behavior does not reflect the department's values." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "It reflects exactly what your department allows." The sentence landed with the weight of a verdict. Eliza pressed a hand to her chest. Raymond looked at Marcus with a mixture of respect and dread. Rourke finally understood that the situation had grown beyond a simple disciplinary issue. Chief Holbrook cleared his throat. "I will handle the internal review personally," and Marcus cut him off, his voice quiet but unshakable. "No, Chief Holbrook. You will not." Silence strangled the parking lot. Every officer, every employee, every witness stilled as if the temperature had suddenly dropped. Marcus continued. "Clara, confirm the terms of Hale Dynamics' public safety contract." Clara responded instantly. "Yes, sir. Hale Dynamics funds 32% of the metropolitan equipment budget, including 4 tactical vehicles and 2 district technology programs. The oversight provisions grant you authority to request leadership reevaluation in cases of misconduct." Rourke's jaw dropped. Mills took a full step back. Chief Holbrook's breath caught in his throat. "Mr. Hale," he said carefully, "let us discuss this." But Marcus's voice had already turned to steel. "Clara, initiate the reevaluation request." "Confirmed," Clara replied. "Notice sent to the mayor's office, public safety committee, and city attorney." The chief's voice cracked. "Marcus, wait." "I did," Marcus said. "I waded through every assumption you made about me." And with that, the quiet man the officers thought they could intimidate stood taller than every badge in that parking lot. The parking lot seemed to contract around the sound of Marcus Hale's final words, as if the concrete itself understood the shift in power that had just taken place. The officers stood frozen, their badges suddenly feeling heavier than the pistols on their hips. Chief Warren Holbrook was still on the line, his voice silent now, caught between authority and fear, listening to a man he had underestimated take control of a situation he no longer had influence over. Marcus did not pace. He did not posture. He simply stood there with the same calm he had held from the moment the officers approached him. But the air around him had changed. It felt charged, steady, inevitable. Clara's voice returned through the smartwatch with the clarity of a legal notice. "Mr. Hale, the office of the mayor has acknowledged receipt. The Public Safety Committee has opened a formal inquiry. Your request for leadership reevaluation has been logged as a priority action." Rourke's shoulders slumped as if his spine itself had given up resisting reality. Officer Mills whispered something under his breath, a plea or a curse, no one could tell. Chief Holbrook finally spoke, but the firmness was gone from his tone. "Marcus, we can handle this internally. There is no need to escalate any further. I will discipline the officers involved and have the reports corrected." Marcus slowly lifted his wrist, looking directly at the smartwatch as if he were staring through the device, straight into the chief's hesitation. "You are not listening," he said quietly. "This is not about discipline. It is about accountability." Rourke shifted uneasily, but Marcus continued. "You allowed officers with multiple bias complaints to stay in the field. You ignored patterns that should have concerned you. You created the environment that made this possible." The chief inhaled sharply. Marcus's gaze did not soften. "Clara, display the city's public safety contract on the X9 windshield." The car reacted instantly, projecting dense legal text across the glass. The employees watching squinted, trying to make sense of the paragraphs, until Clara highlighted one specific line in vivid yellow. Section 12. Leadership Oversight Provision, Clara read aloud. Should systemic negligence be identified at command level, the sponsoring entity may request immediate administrative review of the highest-ranking officer. The review cannot be delayed, denied, or postponed. The color drained from Chief Holbrook's face so quickly that it felt like the temperature in the lot dropped 5 degrees. "Marcus, we can discuss this," he pleaded now, the authority from earlier gone entirely. "Let us talk this through." Marcus did not raise his voice. "I gave you 12 years of funding, 12 years of tech, 12 years of trust, and you let your officers treat me like a criminal standing next to the car I built." Eliza watched him with wide eyes. Raymond stood absolutely still, witnessing the exact moment where institution bowed to individual. Holbrook tried again. You are making a mistake. This will disrupt the entire department. Marcus's answer was immediate. Then perhaps the department needed disrupting. Clara chimed in. Sir, the mayor's office is requesting confirmation. They are asking if you wish to finalize the action. All eyes turned to Marcus. The officers braced. Eliza held her breath. Raymond straightened fully. Even the air felt like it stopped moving. Marcus spoke with the quiet certainty of a man who had been pushed too far, too many times. Clara, confirm. A single tone echoed like a gavel striking wood. Confirmation logged, Clara announced. The leadership reevaluation has been activated. Effective immediately. The chief's voice, when it returned, sounded like a man watching his power slip through his fingers. Marcus, you just ended my career. Marcus's reply was steady and devastating. No, you ended it the moment you let officers like these go unchecked. And with that, the power that had once defined the police chief dissolved completely, leaving only the quiet authority of the man he had tried to intimidate. Inevitability settled over the parking lot like a slow rolling storm, quiet but impossible to stop. The officers who had once barked commands now stood motionless, stripped of certainty, stripped of superiority, stripped of the invisible armor they had worn when they first confronted Marcus Hale beside his own car. The faint hum of the Hale Dynamic X9 filled the silence, its engine cooling like a heartbeat after a battle won. Chief Warren Holbrook was still on the line, but the authority in his voice had been reduced to a trembling echo of what it had been just minutes earlier. Marcus did not look at the smartwatch anymore. He did not need to. Every word the chief spoke was nothing more than background noise to a man who had already decided the outcome. Marcus, there has to be another way, Holbrook pleaded, his tone shrinking with every syllable. This will shake the department. The city. You cannot just remove leadership like this. Marcus's eyes remained fixed on Rourke and Mills, who stood in front of him with their shoulders collapsed inward, as if trying to make themselves small enough to disappear. He spoke with quiet precision. I did not remove leadership. Leadership removed itself the moment it failed to lead. The sentence cut through the lot with a clarity that made even Raymond inhale sharply. Clara's voice chimed again, crisp and steady. Mr. Hale, the mayor's office has acknowledged your confirmation. Effective immediately, the police chief will be placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Chief Holbrook exhaled shakily, the sound of a man watching the last remaining piece of his authority crumble in real time. Marcus, please. We can repair this. Marcus's expression remained unmoved. Repair requires honesty. Accountability. Change. You offered none. Rourke's breathing grew shallow. Officer Mills lowered his gaze to the ground, his earlier confidence nowhere to be found. Eliza, standing just behind Raymond, clutched her notebook to her chest, knowing she was witnessing the kind of justice that rarely unfolded in plain view. Marcus finally turned to the smartwatch. Clara, end the call. Holbrook tried to speak, but the disconnect tone silenced him. The parking lot felt heavier afterward, as if the air itself understood that a chapter had closed. Marcus slipped the smartwatch back against his wrist, then lifted his eyes once more toward the officers. You said you were responding to a report, he began, his voice even. But you did not respond with caution. You responded with assumption. You responded with bias. You responded with entitlement you did not earn. Rourke swallowed hard. Mills blinked against the sting of humiliation. Marcus continued. And you ignored every piece of evidence the moment it contradicted the story you already decided was true. A flicker of shame crossed Mills's face. Rourke's jaw tightened, but there was no strength behind it anymore. The truth had already hollowed him out. Marcus's voice softened, but the softness carried weight. You treated me like a thief beside the vehicle I built. You dismissed verification systems you did not understand. And you pushed me because you thought my silence was weakness. Eliza whispered under her breath. He is not silent. He is deliberate. Marcus took one step forward, not threatening, simply claiming space that had always belonged to him. Clara, he said, log a full misconduct report for both officers. Forward it to the city attorney. Both men stiffened, but Clara responded without hesitation. Logged and forwarded, sir. Marcus held their gaze. This is not revenge. This is consequence. Rourke finally found his voice, though it trembled. "What happens to us now?" Marcus did not blink. "What happens next," he said, "is what should have happened long before today." The weight of that promise pressed down on the lot, and both officers understood that whatever came next would not be gentle, would not be quiet, and would not be avoidable. The question lingered in the air like smoke after a match is struck, thin but impossible to ignore. Rourke asked what would happen to them now, but the truth was already circling him like a spotlight he could not outrun. Marcus Hale stood in the center of the parking lot, no longer just the man they had tried to detain, but the force none of them had expected to face. His voice, when it came, was controlled and even, carrying the weight of a man who had been patient for far too long. "Consequences," Marcus said, "are not punishment. They are correction." The officers shifted under the gravity of his stare. Nearby employees watched from behind the glass doors, pressed close enough to see every detail. Eliza held her breath, realizing this was no longer a confrontation. It was the unraveling of a system that had counted on men like Rourke to behave exactly as they had. Clara chimed through the smartwatch again, calm and precise. "Mr. Hale, the city attorney's office has acknowledged the misconduct report. They are requesting the full video file from facility cameras for immediate review." Raymond Cole, the head of building security, straightened his shoulders, understanding the role he needed to play now. "The footage is clean," he said firmly, looking at Marcus. "Everything that happened is recorded from 5 angles. There is nothing to dispute." Rourke closed his eyes for a moment, realizing how fully the ground beneath him had disappeared. Mills tried to speak, but his words sputtered. "We did not mean for this to go so far." Marcus tilted his head slightly, studying him with the calm of a man who had learned long ago to hear the difference between regret and fear. "People rarely mean for prejudice to go far," he replied. "It just does, because no one stops it." The X9's windshield flickered again as Clara projected the footage she had referenced earlier. The officers approaching Marcus with hands already near their holsters. The dismissal of biometric verification. The tightening grip on a man who never once resisted. The recording was emotionless, factual, brutal in its clarity. There was no anger on the screen, only evidence. Raymond took a step forward, addressing the officers directly. "You had a dozen chances to step back and reassess. A dozen chances to choose caution over assumption. Instead, you escalated every moment." Rourke's eyes dropped. Mills clenched his jaw, realizing that the calm man they put in cuffs had become the witness, the prosecutor, and the verdict all at once. Marcus's voice broke through their silence. "Clara, send a copy of the footage to the Civil Rights Board." Clara responded instantly. "Sent." The officers inhaled sharply, understanding the severity of that move. Complaints could be dismissed. Reports could be buried. But a Civil Rights Board investigation could not be ignored, delayed, or softened. Eliza's voice finally whispered through the tension, barely audible. "This is justice." Marcus did not turn, but he heard her. And for the first time since the officers had approached him, a trace of weariness flickered across his eyes. Weariness, not weakness. Weariness from carrying the weight of encounters like this one across a lifetime. He looked back at Rourke and Mills. "You treated me like a suspect because you assumed I could not be anything else," he said. "You assumed I could not be the owner, the founder, the engineer, or the man responsible for half the innovations you see around you today." Rourke swallowed. Mills stared at the ground. Marcus's next words were quiet, but sharper than anything he had said before. "You did not just disrespect me. You disrespected the work. You disrespected the truth. And you disrespected every person who has ever been profiled the same way." Clara's voice returned, soft but decisive. "Mr. Hale, the mayor's office is requesting a brief statement for the public record." Marcus exhaled once, the kind of breath that came after a long climb. "Not yet," he said. "First, we finish this." And everyone standing there understood. The collapse was still unfolding, and the officers had not yet reached the bottom. The collapse was already in motion, but the silence that followed felt heavier than anything that had come before. The parking lot, once filled with commands and accusations, now felt like a place where truth had finally been forced into the open. Marcus Hale stood at the center of it all, not triumphant, not angry, but resolute. A man who had carried too many moments like this in his lifetime, now refusing to let this one pass without meaning. Rourke and Mills watched him with the hollow eyes of men realizing that the story they tried to force onto him had unraveled in their hands. They were no longer the ones defining the moment. They were the example being made. Clara's voice returned through the smartwatch, steady and neutral. "Mr. Hale, the city attorney has acknowledged receipt of the footage. They are preparing a formal statement and request your confirmation that this incident be logged under the Civil Rights Review Code." Marcus did not look away from the officers. "Confirm," he said. Rourke's breathing turned shallow, as if the single word had punched the remaining air out of him. Mills whispered, "This will ruin us." Marcus held his gaze for a long moment. "Your actions ruined you," he replied. "I am only documenting it." Eliza stepped forward slightly, clutching her notebook as if grounding herself in the gravity of what she was witnessing. She had seen powerful executives before, but never power exercised like this, quiet, measured, and unstoppable. Raymond Cole finally spoke, his voice firm and unwavering. "You created a threat where there was none," he told the officers. "You escalated when you should have assessed. And you treated the founder of this company like he had no right to stand next to the vehicle he engineered." Rourke opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Mills lowered his head further. Marcus took in their expressions, not with satisfaction, but with the clarity of a man who had chosen not to let this become another silent bruise on his memory. "Clara," Marcus said, "notify Human Resources." Both officers looked up sharply. "Sir," Clara responded. "Ready." Marcus's voice remained level. "Effective immediately, both officers are prohibited from entering any Hale Dynamics facility. Add them to the restricted access list." "Confirmed," Clara replied. Both badges flagged and access revoked. The words hit harder than handcuffs, harder than accusations. Because this time, the removal was theirs. The authority they had taken for granted was gone. Rourke stepped forward, desperation rising. "You cannot do this. We were doing our jobs." Marcus did not blink. "You were abusing your jobs," he answered. "And you will answer for it." The mayor's office chimed through the smartwatch next. Clara announced, "Mr. Hale, they are requesting a brief recorded message summarizing your position." Marcus turned slightly, facing the car, the building, and the cluster of employees who had gathered. His voice was calm enough to quiet even the hum of the cooling engine. "Begin recording," he said. A soft tone confirmed it. Marcus spoke into the open air. "Bias is not a mistake. It is a choice. And today, that choice had consequences. Not because I am powerful, not because I built this company, but because truth deserves a place to stand." Eliza's breath hitched. Raymond nodded once, slowly. Marcus continued, "No one should be treated like a suspect beside the work they have created. No one should be dismissed because of the assumptions others choose to make. And no one should be afraid to exist in a place they belong." Clara confirmed, recording saved. Marcus looked at the officers one final time. "This ends here," he said. "Because it should have ended long before today." The wind shifted through the lot, carrying the last remnants of a confrontation that had transformed into something larger than anyone present had expected. Rourke and Mills stood small. The chief was gone. The system had been forced to answer. And Marcus Hale, without raising his voice once, had raised the standard instead. The parking lot returned to silence, but it was not the silence of fear anymore. It was the silence of change.